Good morning, Senator.
Well, good morning, Rick. I like your intro. That's good. That's really upbeat.
I appreciate that.
But
Thank
you can't
sir.
be right when you said it's going to get up to 70 degrees now. Get serious.
I am. It is. I had some sniffles in that last week because it gets warm and then it gets cold and it gets warm.
Yeah.
I think that affects a lot of people.
Well, it really does. But, Rick, we do have some exciting things. I was able to spend some time out in western Oklahoma on the, you and I talked back when the horrible wildfire was taking place. And
Yes,
I talked about, I made 3 trips out there in my little airplane, and I saw cattle hanging on fences being burned to death. I mean, it was just you cry when you and it's such a tragedy. But we did introduce a bill, and it's now introduced. We have a good Democrat co-sponsor from New Mexico. And it's could I just real quickly, there may be some listeners we have out there are not aware that we have some help coming that direction. So the bill that we have that I introduced is called the Wildfire Regulatory Relief Act. And what it does is essentially 3 things. First of all, any of our farmers or ranchers who are listening to us now know what CRP programs is or lands are. That's the Conservation Reserve programs. And there are some restrictions as to who can use those lands to graze cattle. Well, in the case of a tragedy, a wildfire, a tornado, or something like that, they should be able to move them right in there and keep their livestock alive by using those lands. Well, this will allow them to do that without any notification that if a disaster takes place, we can move them in and keep these animals alive. And that is one of the 3 major things that this legislation does. The second thing it does, one of the things that I noticed that when the fire was raging, houses were being burned down, but also fence rows were. A lot of the stuff other than just the houses. Now, FEMA only reimburses the farmer for a residence, and yet you have these huge losses on fence rows. For example, a fence line costs $10,000 for each mile, and they were destroyed. And so there's no reason that the FEMA funds shouldn't go to compensating the farmers for other losses connected with a ranch activity. So that is included. And the last thing is, any banker listening to us now will tell you the worst thing that's happened to the banking industry is the Dodd-Frank bill that happened back during the Obama administration, the overregulation. Well, that kept our bankers after this wildfire from being able to help people they wanted to help because of the strict regulations that precluded them from making loans. In the case of a disaster like this allows the banks to go ahead and go over their lending capacity or change their regulations to be able to help more farmers and ranchers if something should happen. So now that is going to pass, and that's we want to get that passed before something else happens. And so I think it's important to make sure that people know that help is on its way on that.
I think it's great that you're getting help from across the aisle on that.
Well, it is. It is. Of course, in this case, I went to Senator Udall from New Mexico because he had also some things hitting New Mexico. He had similar fires, and of course, it hit Kansas real big, and we have all those people are co-sponsoring. So, yeah, we have a lot of help. This is not a partisan bill. This is something that, a disaster is not Democrat or Republican. We need to get together, and we are doing that. Now, we're not doing that so much, and what's happening is I'm sure you're following it now with the shutting down of government, which could happen tomorrow, Friday night. And if it does, that's something that, frankly, I can't find anyone who wants to do that. But it is difficult, and I have a position because my problem is what's happened to our military. I've talked to you about that before, and when you look and you that in our Army, just for example, what we call the brigades, or the brigade combat teams, only a third of those are actually ready for combat. Now, we can still use them, but still not to the degree that we need to. We have the same problem with the maintenance. We took a real bath in our military during the Obama administration, to the point that the general that is saying we're losing our quantitative and qualitative edge. Historically, we've had an edge over our opponents forever, as long as I can remember, certainly since World War II. And to say that we are actually losing that edge over opponents such as China or Russia, it's a scary thing. So we have serious problems in maintenance and all of that. And so all I'm holding out for is to make sure that as we come up with the solutions to get us into whether it's a continuing resolution or we should be doing it by passing budgets. But that it doesn't seem like that's in the cards for right now. But we have to come up with some way that we're going to give preferential treatment for our military, and that we're doing that this morning, by the way. I'm chairing the Armed Services Committee hearing, and we're talking about that very thing.
Yeah, when we talk about shutting down the government, and that you don't always think okay, so government offices may shut down, but you don't think that. You don't really realize that does affect the military in a big way.
Oh, a huge way, because right now we are stuck with the same budget for all practical purposes that got us into this mess to start with. And, I think everyone should take a deep breath and go back and read that old document nobody reads anymore. It's called a Constitution. Our number one thing that we ought to be doing is to defending America. And this is a scary thing that we're going through right now. Now, if there are people listening to us now who don't believe me, have them talk to, let's say, our 45th here in Oklahoma. They just got back from Ukraine. And they'll tell you what has happened to the military, and that we need to start reprioritizing that. Now that becomes a partisan issue, because during the Obama years, he had a policy. The president said we can't put any more money into defense unless we put an equal amount into social programs. Now, 100% of the Democrats in the United States Senate went along with that, and so that becomes partisan. And so right now it's called parity. A lot of them are holding out for parity, saying no, we can't do anything for the military unless we do it for whatever their programs are. So that's the big fight that's going on right now. I'll be chairing a committee hearing on that at 9:30 Eastern Time this morning.
Okay, and also I guess the success of tax reform.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been a big thing, and
can I tell you,
are already starting to see it.
Yeah, you can see it. There's not a person listening to us right now that is not going to see it by, I'd say, in the next month, because they're starting to get their returns. People are getting their paychecks, and they're more than they were before. I was coming up on American Airlines on Monday. The flight attendant, she didn't know who I was, but she was celebrating that she got a $1,000 bonus from American Airlines. And then somebody else, another flight attendant, said, well, so did I. What American has done is given $1,000 bonuses to everyone except their officers, just celebrating the fact that this tax relief is coming up, and it's going to have the effect of increasing revenue. And it's not, I'm saying good things about American Airlines. It could be anybody else, too. Right now, the Walmart is probably the biggest one in the state of Oklahoma in terms of their numbers of employees that are getting bonuses, getting raises, and good things are happening all over the state. I have a list. If anyone doubts this, I have a website. It's called inhofe.senate.gov. You might write that down, Rick, so that you can repeat it later. Inhofe.senate.gov, and if you pull that up, you'll see a list of 124 companies doing business in Oklahoma that are giving all of their employees huge raises and other things that are all connected to the fact that we had the we had the tax reform. Now let's go back and look historically. This actually started the idea. It was the Kennedy administration. That was a Democrat administration. John Kennedy said we need more revenue for the federal government, and the best way to increase revenue is to decrease taxes. And it worked. And it worked. And in fact, one of the rules of thumb is for each 1% increase in the economy, that translates into $3 trillion of new revenue. I know we're getting into the weeds here, but it's very important that people understand this, because not only are we doing, look at what that bill did. It doubled the exemption for individuals. It doubled the child tax credit. This is middle America, and they're all benefiting from it, and really good things are happening. So I encourage them to look up that website and see what is happening already.
And also, the president's going to be speaking tomorrow at the March for Life.
Yeah,
and
that's a
big thing.
It is a big thing. I've always been 100% pro-life. I honestly believe that as I do, that if life begins at conception, then anything to terminate that is nothing short of murder. And so that's not a very moderate way to put it, but there are going to be lots of people in Washington. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people who agree that we have to stop this barbaric practice of abortions, and particularly when we are looking at late-term abortions. There can't be anyone out there in America who doesn't agree that that is a breathing life that is being taken. So it's going to be I don't know how many people are going to show up. It's cold here, but there will be a lot of them.
Well, listen, Senator, we always appreciate you taking time to stopping by the Wake Up Show and updating us on what's going on. And
I appreciate your flexibility. We had to ask if we could come a little earlier today, so that helped us a lot.
Oh no, that's absolutely fine. And now, when will we see a vote on the wildlife bill?
I don't know. We right now it's all focused on one thing: is that's to stop the closing of government and to come up with. I'm afraid it's going to be a continuing resolution, but we're going to hold out, and I won't support a continuing resolution, and that has a provision in there to exempt the military from that, because we can't continue this deterioration that's been going on.
Well, Senator, please keep us up to date on that, and of course, we can check out the website. As you said, inhofe.senate.gov, and we can keep up to date that way. But we love having you on, and we look forward to another chance here in the near future.
I will do it, Rick. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator.